welcome. We are chatting about something very important here today. We're talking about load shedding. And I've got two very important guests that's going to be talking us through some of the big buzzwords of the industry. We have Ryan Martin, which is the co-founder and sales director of Syntech, right? And then we have our tech-savvy social media mogul here with us. It's Grant Hines. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Pleasure. I've never been called a mogul before. I like that.
Very cool.
Oh, I'll take it back. No, that's fine. Okay, so we are talking about load shedding, which is a big thing here. Is load shedding like unique to South Africa only?
Yes and no. I think it happens all over the world. It's called rolling blackouts in the rest of the world.
Right.
I think the only difference is we kind of have it a little bit more than the rest of the world. And really it's an engineered solution to turn off parts of the grid so that power stations aren't overloaded and you don't have a complete shutdown.
And we're not alone at this. Countries like Iraq have had load shedding, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea, but even countries that you might not expect recently California and Texas also had load shedding, rolling blackouts. And going into the future, UK are trying to implement or looking at implementing ways to, again, it's an engineered solution to manage the grid, and people are going to need to do that.
Wow, the UK, can you believe it? Okay, so I need to know what I can afford to keep on, all right, during load shedding. What would you say is an entry-level solution for like a work from home, school from home kind of a setup to a small business to a larger business setup? What would you say?
So let's start with the most important stuff, right?
The internet.
Internet, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So Gizzu's got a really cool range of mini UPSs that plug in, keep your fiber router and your Wi-Fi and all of that stuff just running.
Right.
And it is a game changer. I mean, for me, my family can continue to operate and the wheels don't fall off, at least when the internet's on.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And a lot of the devices that you use with your router, like your phone or your laptop, have batteries in it. But there are some devices in your house that don't have batteries, like your light bulbs. And Gizzu have an incredible range of emergency LED bulbs that screw into fittings that exist in your house. So either you've got a screw-in fitting or a bayonet light fitting.
Right.
The bulbs will work. They've got batteries in them. So when load shedding kicks in, they stay on. And if they're fully charged, they can last up to 5 hours. And that's a pretty, I think it's stage 5 or stage 6 load shedding.
That's decent, yeah.
Yeah, which will keep you going. And obviously, there's so many reasons to have great light. Obviously, you need to work, or if maybe granny wants to read and doesn't want to use the internet.
Yes.
But it's also a safety issue. You know, having light means that there's more security and there's less likely to have crime in a place that is well lit.
Very important, very important.
So you got lights, you got Wi-Fi. I think the next thing is TV, right? TV,
and fridge. Like
maybe fridge.
There's any small appliances. Gizzu have an incredible range as well of power stations, that start all the way from a 150 watt power station to a 500 watt power station.
Okay.
So depending on the needs that you have, whether it's just to charge a couple of phones or a laptop, all the way through to powering your TV and making sure, I don't know, that mom wants to watch the rugby, like you could do that, you know.
Yes. Okay, so I have a semi-dumb question. What is the difference between a watt and a watt? I think it's watt.
Watt hour?
A watt hour?
Yeah, it's not a dumb question at all.
Oh.
It's a great question.
Okay.
And so a watt is really the amount of energy or power that a device will use, and the watt hours are basically how long it can continue to use it for. So, for example, a 150 watt power station will have a maximum output of up to 150 watts, and the draw that each of the appliances will plug into will give you will be up to 150 watts. So a 500 watt can effectively power more devices and more power hungry devices, whereas a watt hour is how long it can take. So for example, the Gizzu 500 watt power station can power a device that will draw 500 watts for 1 hour. Or a TV, for example, will typically draw about 100 watts, so it will power a 100 watt TV for up to 5 hours.
Okay.
That's kind of, I don't know if you can explain
it. I like to think of it as like a tap with water. So you have a maximum water pressure of your tap that's coming out, which would be, I would consider your watt hours. So that's how much it's pushing. And then per hour. Think about it, as it's rushing out, and the higher the pressure, the more water it will squirt out.
Right.
And then the amount of water is how big the faucet is, how many buckets it's going to fill.
Okay.
So it can fill a certain amount of buckets per hour with the amount of water that's coming through the faucet. Or if you've got one of those little like water saving ones, it squirts a little bit of water, so it uses less water, which is a good thing in that situation. But in a situation where you need a lot of devices powered, you need more.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess consumers just need to know what they want to power and the watt rating on that device.
Yes.
So if you've got a hairdryer, that chows a lot of electricity.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas a TV is going to be relatively
Not as much.
Yeah, the way to do that is to look at the back of your devices or on the boxes,
and
you can literally,
that's
just write it out and do the math yourself. Short of getting an electrician in and testing the drawer, because that is another way to do it. But writing it out gives you a fair idea of how much power is coming through.
Okay.
And I suppose the more you know about what you want to power,
yes.
you can make an informed decision on getting a solution that's in your budget.
Okay.
And
because dad might want the best one in that, like you can get in the league, and mom's like, no, we don't need that, because if you do the math, we only need to power these things and get mid-range.
So it causes a lot of arguments within a home, is what you're saying. So our appliances can't be happy with all this on and off and all these power surges, and like, how do I protect my TV, my smart TV, my fridge, my internet? Like, how do I do that?
So Gizzu has a very cool product. It's a universal voltage protector.
Okay.
And what it does is it regulates the input current to make sure that it is within a safe voltage range and doesn't damage your appliances.
Okay.
And what we've picked up is that when load shedding stops and the power comes back on, very often there's a spike with either too much or too little voltage, and that's what damages the appliances. So this little plug goes between the wall socket and your appliances plug, and
it's a protector. It's like a bodyguard.
Yeah, we've all heard stories of like friends whose TVs have exploded because of load shedding, or the gates aren't working, or the fridges have gone, and that's because there's under voltage, which would destroy the compressors in your fridge or your freezer, or over voltage, which would blow your TV or your PlayStation or whatever. And the problem is that insurance companies aren't looking after people with products that are damaged by electricity now. So it's up to us as the owners of our electronics to look after them. And they're saying that kind of ignorance is no excuse. So a surge protector like the one that Gizzu is offering is perfect for that.
No,
it's even got a little reading on it.
Yeah, tell you exactly how many. Yeah,
it's very cool. Very, very cool. I've seen it actually, and I need it, because every time there's load shedding, I sit down on my knees and pray.
It's like, oh, the TV comes back online.
Please. Okay, so we've all heard about the buzzword going off grid. What does that mean, and what is the cost implication essentially?
It's very costly. We've started the process of going off grid.
You personally?
Yes, personally.
Okay.
But it's something that's don't think completely attainable. Number one, and number two, extremely expensive, and number three, not viable for a lot of people who don't own property, and that's the vast majority of South Africans. If you're in an informal settlement or you don't own property, the solutions that Gizzu are offering are much better, much wiser spends, because you can take the emergency light bulbs and the router power supply with you to your new premises and power those devices, and you can move them to another location. So you're going camping. You want to be able to move your 500 watt power station to that location. You can do that. We can't do that with an off-the-grid solution. So I highly recommend people first look at investigating these solutions, because they're more sustainable. They're easier to replace. They will last you longer, and they will move with you no matter where you're going. And that's really important.
I like that. That's awesome. That's a good point, actually. But thank you guys so much for this. This has been like information overload. I like literally have to go ice my head. But thank you again so much for everything, and thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels, co.za. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.